So I feel like as an agent, whether people know you're an agent or that in conversation it comes up that you're an agent, the first question that always comes out is, so how's the
How's the
market?
market?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think right now it's not a blanket answer. It's not like, oh, it's a buyer's market, or oh, it's a seller's market, or you know houses are selling really fast, or houses are sitting on the market for a long time. I really feel like it depends on what sector of the market you're in. Um, right now, what I see is there are a lot of first time home buyers that are out there. Are the millennial generation is one of the biggest generations, and they are coming of age where they are ready to purchase their first home. The problem is the people that are living in the homes that they want to purchase that are in their price point are at a 2.5 to 3% interest rate, and they either don't want to move or they can't really afford to move, or it just doesn't make financial sense to move because of the way the interest rates are right now. So then you have the next sector that is your move up homes. And those people need the people to sell their homes in order to buy the next step in the process. So a lot of times you'll see those homes sitting on the market for a little while because they need the people who want to sell their starter home to buy their next move up house. Um, but then you see the higher end price point, 900 million plus. Those people have money. Most of them have been very successful in whatever they've done. They know how to make money in any market, and they're the ones that I see that are buying and selling. Um, we just recently had a property that was 1.5 million that went under contract in 3 days.
Yeah, I was about to say, I feel like your current inventory of listings on the market prove what you're saying because all of, in fact, that client that's like two houses and they just it it's like, but then we have this really awesome listing in Sugar Hill that I thought was going to go instantly because I mean it's like the perfect house. It's been maintained and it's in a great area and it's sitting and I'm like, how is that sitting? But it's like you said, and I like call you all the time when I'm reading articles and I'm trying to put together the newsletter, and like what I'm reading is usually national, like nationally, this is what the market's doing. And I'm like, is this what the market's doing here? Because I feel like this is not, it doesn't. So is it possible to, like, you're talking about the different sectors of like price points, but is it possible for like Georgia or even like certain counties to have a different market, like be a buyer's market when, everywhere else is a seller's market? And like for the melodies of the world, what does that even mean? What is a buyer's market?
Yeah, so I mean, to answer your first question, yes. I mean, there can be sectors. You definitely have different areas that are more populated or more attractive to people than other areas. So you can have counties or cities that are, sellers markets when other markets are buyers markets. Um, the development, the future growth of that area depends on, can play a factor in that as well. I know there's an inland port going in Hall County, which I think is going to drive a lot of people to move in that area. It's going to create a lot of jobs. So I think you're gonna see that become more of a seller's market because there's going to be a demand for people to move there. Um, when the Amazon warehouse and facilities were being built, that's driving a lot of people to want to move in that area for the jobs. So there are different things like that that cause people to want to move to a certain area. Um, we're seeing a lot of expansion out to uh, more outskirt counties than have been in the past. So you're seeing a lot more development out in the Walton County area or the Jackson County area, Barrow County, even
Hmm.
Hall County, even moving further up north. I think a lot of people, a couple different reasons. I mean, some people can work remotely now, so they're not as concerned about their commutes. Development is happening out there where you're getting hospitals and restaurants and shops and those types of things. So people are moving out towards those areas. But I think people are also trying to get a little more space, a little more land, a little more, uh, privacy. And they're only able to find that in the counties that are not as developed as, say Fulton County or DeKalb County or Gwinnett County, Cobb County.
What was the county? You had a house listed there maybe last year, and they had a sign, but the is it Walton County?
Walton
Yeah,
County.
yeah. I thought that was really cool. That will you tell them?
Yeah, so I've in driving in Walton County, I was seeing yard signs, and this was during the elections, that said "Don't Gwinnett or Walton," which I thought was funny, but it has some validity to it. They're trying to slow down that growth.
Hmm.
They want to keep that more rural, hometown feel out there. Uh, and actually, in doing that, they have put in some ordinance where if you're developing land, you cannot build a house on less than 2 acres.
Which is amazing.
So
I love it.
every house that's being developed out in Walton County right now has to be a minimum of 2 acres, uh, which I think is great. I think if you're looking to keep that more rural hometown feel, then that's a great way to do it. People that have smaller tracts of land are grandfathered in and being able to build on them, but any type of
Hmm.
development or subdividing of properties has to be a minimum of 2 acres.
Yeah. Because in Gwinnett, we're going to build on whatever piece of land. We're going to throw something on
And that's right. Yeah. Um, so yeah, I think that there are different areas and different situations that cause areas to either be a buyer's market or a seller's market. Um, but really, the determining factor is the statistics of it, of how much inventory is out there, and they look at it by the basically like the absorption rate. So if how for the number of homes that are selling in a particular month, as opposed to how many homes are on the market, how long would it take to sell all of those homes? Um, and your balance is somewhere around 3 months. So anything less than 3 months would be a seller's market, and anything more than 3 months would be a buyer's market. Um, so it just kind of depends on the area and how many homes are selling in that area in any given month.
Gotcha. So one thing I always read is that, you know, whoever these people are that are, you know, looking at the trends and determining what it it seems like we're never in a balanced market, but they're always predicting the balanced market is coming. Uh, I guess maybe two questions. The obvious, like, what is a balanced market, and have you ever had a balanced market since you've been in the business?
This is a good question. I mean, I think that balance market is somewhere around that 3 month, uh, absorption ratio. Um, and
I think no.
I want to say maybe when I first got in, right before the market crashed in '08, that was probably the closest to a balanced market that we've been in. Um, yeah, it's interesting too because you look at the normal appreciation curve on a home is 2 to 3% per year. Townhomes are about 1.5% to 2%. Um, I don't know that we've been there for a long time, and I don't know that we're probably close to that right now. Of course, home prices shot up there for a little while, and they've kind of leveled off a little bit. Uh, So I kind of feel like we're probably close to that at this point. But again, it depends on what sector you're in the market,
Hmm.
because that middle market, those move up buyers, or that move up buyer price point is struggling. Because yeah, why would you give up a 2 to 3% interest rate and get double that and get a higher priced home? Uh, those mortgage payments can be shocking
Yeah.
from where you are now.
It would have to be necessity, I imagine. Like you have no other option. You have to move for your job or yeah, because I don't think any of us are like, yeah, let's go double our mortgage payment. Yay.
Right, right. A lot of that movement is happening because of job transfers or needing to get kids in different school districts or just absolutely being at the place where you've got to have more room. Um, so yeah, I think that it depends on where you are in those sectors of the market.
Yeah. So I'm sure that this is something that you get asked a lot too, but like what would it take to get there? Like what do you think needs to happen in order for those people who are like in the middle of the market like to move up and move out so that the first time home buyers can like get in there? Like what does that look like?
I think stability in the market. No, no market likes insecurity. Your stock market, your housing market, your job market. Any time there's any volatility or instability in those markets, usually the economy, then everybody kind of freezes up.
Mm,
They don't want to do anything. They don't want to put themselves in a position to where if the market were to go down, that they're overextended. Um, so I think we need some stability. I think we also need the interest rates to come down.
mm,
I think if we can get in the mid four range, I think that would allow people to not see such a drastic change in their mortgage payment.
yeah.
If we could get in that mid four range, I think you would see some of those people in the low threes be willing to move,
Hmm.
be willing to put their house on the market, be willing to move up, take on a higher priced home, and only be paying a percent and a half more in their interest rate every month.
I'm putting you on the spot here with some real math, but just like to give an example, because I remember when I was buying my first home, I don't remember the numbers, but I remember they convinced me to go to a higher price point because it was only X amount of dollars more a month. Okay, so I'm going to put you on the spot with some math, but I'm just wondering like if you're looking at a $600,000 house with the current mortgage rate, which is about 7.
5.7. Yeah.
Okay. And what you're saying is 4.5% would help people feel better. What is the actual like price difference there if you go from 7% to 4.5%?
On a $600,000 house, your principal and interest payment doesn't include your property taxes and your homeowner's insurance. You're looking at about $1,000 a month difference in the mortgage payment.
So that's huge.
It's significant, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
Uh,
that would definitely. I mean, we're not trying to move, but I definitely think like that would be appealing to me. Like, okay, we could do that.
right, right. So yeah, I think that if we can get around that 4.5%, I think you'll see your move up buyers who are in what would be first time home buyer price points moving up to that move up bracket, and then that would free up a lot, or that would put a lot of homes on the market for first time home buyers to purchase. Then you got your move up buyers. And then I think you even got those people that are in that middle ground that would buy those 900 to a million plus homes as well. So I think it would open up the whole market in every sector of the market if we could get some stability in the economy and get those interest rates down.
So I remember like at the beginning of the year, and you follow mortgages more closely, obviously, for your job than I do, but I just remember all the predictions were like it was gonna get into the sixes, and it really hasn't. I mean, it does, but it doesn't stay there. So it's like, what will, and I don't again like know how mortgages work or what even goes into like how we get our rates or anything like that. But like, what will it take to get there?
Again, I think it's the stability in the market. I think things are being shaken up right now. I kind of describe it as like a snow globe. You shake a snow globe and stuff's going everywhere and all over the place, and eventually it settles down. Um, and I feel like eventually things will settle down, and when they do, that's when you'll kind of see, you know, jobs get more secure. You'll see unemployment rates go down. You'll see interest rates go down. You'll see hopefully the stock market go up, and kind of stay there as not the you know almost looks like a
Zigzag.
heartbeat monitor right now. Uh, so it's having that stability, um, and I don't know. Yeah, they did. They predicted. Well, we predicted, or it was predicted that last year the interest rates would go down, and then it was, you know, after the election they were going to go down, and it was after the inauguration they were going to go down, and it's like keep having these milestones of things where it's like, oh, after that, then the interest rates will go down, and they haven't. Um, and I really don't think that we're going to see any type of dramatic drop in the interest rates this year, maybe at the end of the year.
Hmm.
Um, but it's gone up and down a little bit, and there's been some dips. We had a client that hit that dip perfectly. Now
Hmm.
it wasn't anything that was predicted or they were trying to do that. They just happened to lock in their rate as that dipped, and then the next day it went right back up. Um, so if you can catch those dips, you're great. You're locked in and good to go. Uh, but we're staying in those high sixes to low sevens right now.
Yeah. So I know we talked about this a little bit on the last podcast, but how, and maybe you asked that was last week, so I can't remember. But how are these new home builders able to offer? Because I see that they are offering the much lower interest rate. So, like, how are they doing that and the rest of the mortgage rates cannot offer that?
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit. I mean, they can buy packages of money basically to lend at a lower rate. They're not doing it for free. Uh, the last new construction home that I did, I mean, the builder paid $28,000 to buy their interest rate down,
Oh, wow.
to get them into the fours. So I think the builders have those margins to where they can do that, where your normal homeowner can't give up 20, $30,000 of their profit to buy a buyer's interest rate down to where it needs to be, where the builders have a little bit more margin in their costs and their profit. And of course, it's coming out of their profit, but
Hmm.
they can spread their costs over multiple properties, whereas you as a single homeowner, that's your cost. That's your your sole property.
Gotcha.
Whereas a builder can spread that out throughout their community, and they have the ability to make more concessions than a normal seller would be able to make.
Gotcha. So you mentioned the word concessions. Can you explain what that means?
So it is, you are bound by the loan that you're getting as to how much the seller can pay in concessions, which would be closing costs, or really kind of closing costs, your prepaids, which are your property taxes and your homeowner's insurance, and any type of interest rate buy down, whether that be just a straight buy down to okay, we're gonna buy it down to 4.5% for the 30-year life of the loan, or if you're doing like a 2-1 buy down where you're you buy it down 2 points from the normal interest rate. So if it were at 7, you would buy it down to 5% for the first year, and then the second year would be a 1 point buy down, so it would be at 6% for the second year. Um, so it, each loan and your down payment determines how much the seller can contribute towards those things.
So what are like the right now in today's market, what are the common concessions that your sellers are having to make to get their houses sold?
You're seeing seller paying closing costs for the buyer. Those can run anywhere from about 3 to 4% of the purchase price with those closing costs and prepaids. And I've seen probably in your $400,000 price range, you're seeing an average of a seller paying about $5,000. Now, of course, that's an average. So you see sellers that aren't paying any closing costs, and then I've seen sellers paying ten to $15,000 in closing costs.
Hmm.
Um, so it does vary based on uh, the property, the value, the buyer situation. But closing costs are the main thing that I'm seeing sellers having to pay right now.
Gotcha. So another thing that I'm seeing a lot, and I know I've asked you this before, um, but this thing called assumable loan. So it's like this house is for sale and it qualifies for an assumable loan. What is an assumable loan? How does it work?
So your VA loans and your FHA loans are assumable, meaning that the new buyer can take over the terms of the current loan. Um, that would be whatever the interest rate is that the current seller has. That would be the time frame left on their mortgage. So if they got a 30-year mortgage and they've been there for 5 years, there's only 25 years left on that mortgage. So it can be a good thing for a buyer to come in and assume someone's mortgage, especially if they're at a 3% interest rate. You still have to qualify for it. It's not just oh, okay, I'm going to take over your payments and we're going to move on. The property still sells. The mortgage name on the mortgage changes hands. So that person getting that, assuming that mortgage still has to meet the qualifications for that mortgage. I think the biggest hurdle in that is that most people are selling their home for a profit. They the house is worth more than what's owed on their mortgage. So for a buyer to come in and be able to purchase a home and assume the seller's current mortgage, they've got to come up with cash for the difference of what's owed on the mortgage and what the sales price is of the home. So
Hmm.
you know,
So not as great as it sounds. Like it sounds like, oh yeah, I can. They've got a 4% interest rate. I'm gonna get in there, uh, and so that's probably why you don't like you see it on the houses that are for sale, but you don't really hear about people actually doing it
right.
because it's not as easy as it sounds.
Yes. And it's not something that an investor could do because these are owner occupant mortgages. So an investor, if somebody were to come in and assume the mortgage and purchase the home, they would have to occupy the home as their primary residence.
Oh, okay.
Um, so it wouldn't be something that an investor could come in and assume. What you're seeing investors trying to do, which I think we've talked about a little bit before, is do what they call a subject to, where they're purchasing your home subject to your current mortgage.
Mm,
Uh, it's different than an assumable mortgage. They're not assuming the mortgage. The mortgage is not changing into their hands. The mortgage is staying in your name.
mm-hmm.
If there's any missed payments or default on it, it goes on your credit, not the investor who's doing the subject to.
Cool.
Now, a lot of times they will come
Who
in.
is signing up for that?
I mean, you would have to be in a very specific scenario in order to do that. Also, if you're looking to qualify for another home, the new mortgage company is going to count your current payment against you because the mortgage is still in your name.
Mm-hmm.
Most mortgage companies require a 6 to 12 month history of someone else paying the mortgage in order to not qualify, not use that payment to qualify you. So it would have to be somebody that in a very specific situation that's willing to take the risk, that is not buying another home or has the means to qualify for, you know, multiple mortgages at the same time. Um, so I haven't had anybody that's jumped at that offer for someone to come in and purchase the house subject to. I feel like too it would have to be a short term, like hey, I'm taking your mortgage subject to for 6 months. I don't know that I would do it for much longer than that because it's just out there and it's always on your, in your name until they end up paying it off at whatever point they decide to pay it off. Um, so the risk is always out there for you with your name still staying on that mortgage.
Yeah, that does not appeal to me at all.
Yeah, it doesn't appeal to a lot of people.
They make it sound so good. This is why I'm glad that I have you because I feel like on some of these things, like if I weren't married to a real estate agent, like I'm the target audience because I am sold. I'm like, that sounds awesome. Yeah. And then you're like, well, so I appreciate having, yeah, you in my pocket where you can, you know, help me see through the sales tactic part of, because yeah, some of these things, they sound so awesome. And then when we talk, it's like, yeah, that's not easy or awesome, actually. So, I-
Yeah, they make it appealing because they're like, oh, we'll pay you full price for your home.
mhm.
Whatever you're asking for, we'll pay that. But yeah, it's not, they're not giving you that money up front for you to go spend on whatever you want to spend
Right.
on or buy another house. It's tied up for a while. And a lot of times they're not even giving you all the equity that you have in it. I've seen some where they're offering you 8 to 10%, and you may have 30 or 40% equity in the property. So you're waiting on that other 20 to 30% equity for sometimes 10 to 15 years, depending on what their balloon payment option may be in the contract that they're offering you.
Mm-mm. So going back, like when we're talking about sellers, and you have quite a few sellers that they're in this position, like what do you say if somebody calls you tomorrow, hey, I want to list my house, like what do you tell them to prepare them um, for the current market in selling their home?
I like to show numbers. I'm a numbers
I
person.
can't believe it.
So I like to show numbers and say, okay, here's the average of closing costs that sellers are paying in the market right now. Here's the average days on market, that homes are sitting on the market before they get a contract. So a lot of I've seen a lot where it's 45 days on the market, and then it's another 30 days to close.
Hmm.
So you're 75 days into the process by the time you actually close and move out of the house. Um, so I think just preparing a seller to, we're not the market that we were a couple of years ago, where you're going to get 10, 15 showings in a couple day period, and you're going to get full price or over asking price offers on your home. The majority of the time, again depending on the sector that you're in, your house is going to sit on the market for a little while. You're going to have usually a surge of showings right when the property goes on the market, and then they get more sporadic the longer you sit.
Hmm.
You know, um, you're probably going to have to do a price reduction at some point, um, and that will kind of give you that next surge of buyers. Once you hit a different price point that are going to come out. And you're going to have to negotiate. You're probably going to have to come off the price a little bit. You're probably going to have to pay some closing costs. Um, so it is a little bit more of a challenge and an education process, because it's not like it was a couple years ago where we put our house on the market and it sells in a couple days and we're
Hmm.
off to the next thing in our lives.
Yeah, that was wild when that was happening. Really wild.
Yep.
I feel like y- we got spoiled in that where now we think that was the norm. I mean, the interest rates were really low, and yeah, the houses were just flying off the market. I mean, and we personally, benefited from that. I mean, we sold a house during that time that otherwise probably would have sat for longer.
Um, but I feel like where we are now is more normal. Like in looking back over your last 20 years, like the way the market is operating now is more similar to what it was like before, you know, the market crashed and then before the pandemic.
Mm.
And but we were that really like what year and a half, and we just think that's how it should be now. I mean, yeah,
Right.
because it was so easy, but that's just not.
Yeah.
It wasn't realistic, and we knew that was not going to last very long.
We forget that though when we're in the midst of it.
Well, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think another thing that sellers can do is, making their homes as move-in ready as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to work within your budget and your means, obviously, in that. But most buyers are looking for something that they can move into and start living. If they got to do some upgrades here and there, that's okay, but they don't want to have to do an extensive amount of upgrades before they even
Mm-hmm.
have the opportunity to move in. So I think getting your house in the best condition you can uh, within your means is going to help you in selling your home as well.
So, what advice do you have for buyers who are ready to buy and want to buy and can't find anything?
Yeah, yeah. I mean that's a good question. I think you've got to be patient. You've got to look at things right away. Even though houses do tend to sit on the market a little bit longer, the ones that are priced right, the ones that are in the best condition, those are still selling quicker.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not on top of it and you're not looking at those houses uh, right away, then you still could miss out on them. I think you also still need to make decent offers. Like as your agent, I would help with a market analysis of that property, just like I would for a seller, and say, hey, here's what I think this property is worth. There's still some negotiation room, which is fine, but you know, not to go in and just make ridiculous offers because you know, oh, it's a buyer's market, or houses aren't selling as fast. Sellers are still getting reasonable value for their home,
Mm-hmm.
so you're not seeing sellers, you know, taking 15-20% off the price, no matter how you hash it out. Whether you're taking money off the purchase price itself, or asking the seller to pay for closing costs, the seller's looking at how much money they're going to walk away with. So
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Exactly. I know Gwinnett County like had over. I mean, the what are 5 months. So we're 5 months in, and pretty consistently like 98% of the list price, which is pretty good.
yeah, no, that's great. There's some closing costs that are in there that's not factored into that percentage, but as far as a list price to sales price, it is still strong.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not seeing these drastic price cuts, or sellers taking drastically less for their house. They're still getting their value.
You had mentioned about the pricing strategy, um, being on the outside, listening to you talk to people. I feel like your clients who listen to you about what to price their home at, those are the ones that sell quickly. And I get it because I'm sure I would argue like, and it's like your house and it's personal to you. And I mean, I think of people like my dad. Sorry, Dad, for calling you out on the podcast, but like he wants like dollar for dollar what he puts into the house. But I think it's really important, like when you get an agent, like trust them and price it, because like statistically, when people listen to you, it's us.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that. I mean, but yeah, I mean, I try to do extensive research before I go to present pricing to somebody. I want to make sure that my numbers are there and that what I am presenting to them I can justify. Um, so I think yeah, I mean, I don't go in blind. I don't just guess. I'm looking at comparables. I'm adjusting based on condition and square footage and bedrooms and bathrooms and all of these factors that are involved in what, determines the price of a home. Um, so, it's there are a lot of upgrades that people do, and that's why I always talk about resale value that don't necessarily add value or don't necessarily add dollar for dollar value to the home. Um, they help, but it's not a direct correlation of like, okay, well, I replaced my driveway. Okay, that's an expensive upgrade, but it's not somebody's not going to pay you $15,000 or $20,000 more for your house because you have a new driveway.
Right.
Now they would probably pay you less for your house if your driveway is,
It's crappy, right?
all busted up and, lifting or, whatever. But, that that's not going to be a direct correlation of, oh, I can get another, they're going to pay $10,000 or $15,000 more for my house than the house next door that, has a usable driveway but may not be in as good a shape.
Yeah. I'm glad that you mentioned, because I think a lot of people they don't really know like the extensive amount of work that goes into like, yeah, you're not just guessing, you're not pulling numbers out of the sky. Like you will be over there on the computer at night, looking at all the things and looking again at all the things, and sometimes in the car, I feel like, yeah, when you say you're a numbers guy, you really that this is why you do this stuff and I don't do this stuff because I mean, square foot, you lost me at square footage of this and that per dollar. That's just not my gift, but I think it is important for people to know like that, yeah, you're doing your research and you're not just pulling out a number that you think. It's very heavily documented and you're going through all of that, and you do a lot.